it's amazing, that a guy could play, but there's also that hang when you're in a van for 12 and a half hours. Do you want to throw him out the door or do you want him, to show up to the gig with you?
Ghost Cult Keefy here. I am super psyched to be joined with the guys from Gozu, Doug and Gaff. May the force be with you and happy Thursday to y'all.
Yes.
I know Doug a long time. I followed the band for a long time. People who've watched these videos know how autobiographical I get and all that jazz. And so I lived in Boston for a long time, right around the time Gozu formed. And so I can proudly say I have followed the band for its entirety. You guys are coming back with a new record after a bit of a break. So if you want to catch us up on the time between albums before we unpack this brand new bad boy.
So COVID kind of cock blocked us. I think that's the easiest way to put it. And then during that time, we lost our drummer, so we had to get another drummer. That whole time, though, during that, Sensitive Doug and I were writing. So we record on our phones and send to each other. So we tried to stockpile, a lot of songs, to be honest with you. Well, you can talk about Seth, how he came into the picture if you'd like
Yeah,
to.
so we
Douglas,
we
you were the
were at a
one
point
that
where we were
made
trying
that
to figure
happen.
out how we're gonna get a new drummer. And I had a friend of a friend who knew Seth. We connected and he came down and like literally the first song we played, like the first knew right away that he was gonna be the one. And it worked out great. He's amazing and he contributes, like nobody we've ever had before, and it's been a pleasure. And so we got these songs together and we recorded with Dean again up in New Hampshire, and we're pretty psyched about it. It's definitely I think our most focused album and heaviest by far, but still contains like that quintessential like Gozu, those Gozu tricks or whatever, with like big choruses and some different like time signatures here and there and that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit for everybody. So it's good.
Yeah, Seth came in and definitely put a fire under us. I think he kind of really stepped up the band. But there was also this is the most where the four members could speak, regarding what we like, what we didn't like. There was no walking on eggshells, shall we say. He did drums in a day and a half. Never happened. We started guitars on the second day. I definitely think a distinct groove, and he has such a work ethic that Doug, Joe, and I really kind of had to step up our game to not be shown up by the young guy in the band.
Nice. I always felt like when I lived in New England, the scene was very incestuous there. And if you had somebody quit or leave or something, you could always just pluck somebody else from another state or another band or another scene. So that sounds very fortunate for you guys. There's no shortage of amazing musicians in the town.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And a big part is it's amazing, that a guy could play, but there's also that hang when you're in a van for 12 and a half hours. Do you want to throw him out the door or do you want him, to show up to the gig with you? So, we did that also. So, we put a lot of time and effort into, but as Doug said, like literally the first snare hit, I was like, okay, I'm sold. Like this kid is amazing. And it's just each time you play with him, he gets better and better and better.
Nice. So, it's like Spinal Tap. It's hard to keep a drummer, man. They explode for no reason and just implode. Something happens. They're a strange breed. They have the most gear. They take the most space on the stage. And in the van, if you get a good one, hang on to them. So the album is Remedy, right? Which also has all kinds of connotations we'll get into in a second. But I want to say, like all the things, if you've been a fan of this band, all those hallmarks of the band are there. But what I want to say that really grabbed me on a few repeated listens of this record is this is far and away the best vocal performance from the whole band. There's harmonies, there's an incredible sort of outro vocal part on Rambo 2 that blew my mind so much I had to stop it and replay it, just that section over and over. I looped it, so I kept hearing it. I was like, what? This is wrecking me. I can't cope how good this is. So that seems to be an area where you guys, it seems like it's like a conscious effort to take the band in a new melodic direction at the same time as still being like kind of very, grimy and gritty.
I'll be honest with you. I did the vocals in 3 days. It just kind of came. It's all stuff, I've been listening to like a lot of, Sly and the Family Stone, Roxy music, the band, just things that were pretty heavy harmony wise. And luckily everything just kind of flew together. It's the most prepared we've been, to do an album. So when we got in there, we knew what we wanted to do, but also having that kind of concreteness, you were able to kind of do different things because, the foundation was already set. So yeah, I'm glad you like the vocals. Yeah, I tend to not listen to them too terribly much, but I'm glad that people really enjoy them.
Word. I would be surprised if most people don't call that out as a highlight of the album. It has to be for me, one of them. Do you guys do a lot of pre-production? You said this is the most prepared you ever were. How does that work for you guys?
A lot of the vocal stuff happens. The magic stuff actually happens like in the studio. I mean, Marc's that good that it's like he can, he could take, some, input in terms of, hey, you want to try this, you want to do this, you want to, maybe you should try this on this and that or whatever. And then, he comes up with some stuff and he's like, maybe I'll try this. It just ends up being, for the most part, and I'm not exaggerating, like on the fly stuff that just you listen to, you're like, holy shit, this is pretty amazing.
Word.
But musically though, I think it was the most prepared, that we've been. Just in regards to, I mean, there's probably 16 guitar tracks on each song. Like no like I'm not, so Douglas came in knowing what he wanted to do, right down to what pedals, heads, things like that. And again, it all started off with Seth. Literally, I think we showed up at noon and we started at 2. He did 5 songs that day and 5 songs the next, and Doug started playing guitar on Saturday. So, I mean, we had some sessions where like 5-hour sessions on a Saturday, just hammering through everything. So that way, when we got in, we were able, to have, the music all set. But yeah, like vocally, a lot of times it's just, these guys will be like, hey, let's try this, let's try this. And this album, like, we could do that. Be like, all right, Doug, try this, or Joe, try this, or especially with Seth, like, try this. There's some stuff that was never done, especially I know in like Pillow Talk at the end, that wasn't even in there. We were just like, hey, can you try this? And he's like, sure. And 2 takes, it was done. He's like, oh yeah, I could probably do it better. So at the end, bam, 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 what I mean? Just 2 takes, done. So having that, being able to speak freely in the studio is pretty key. Not being afraid to say, hey man, can you try this or try that? It goes a long way.
Right on. Of course, people know the reputation of the band being like a heavy riff band, but I'm always curious about leads. Is that something that gets worked out well in advance? Okay, we have the basic song structure. I'm gonna prepare the whole lead well before I go in to press record in the studio, or is it sort of a live in the moment kind of thing too? All right, good to know. For Remedy, just the title, is there any I didn't have a lyric sheet or anything, so I don't know if there was a deeper meaning or a call out.
It was kind of in the vein, of each album that we've done. And Seth was the one who actually came up with Remedy. There's like no hidden meaning, equilibrium. And then, we'll throw out, and the 4 of us will just be like, okay, what about this? What about this? You know what I mean? And Remedy just kind of stuck. Like, we're not guys that are going to be like, name of the album is like Ancient Times of the Hidden Dragon, you know what I mean? Or stuff like that. It's usually, something that someone can kind of understand, or it just kind of flows off the tongue. So yeah, there's no real hidden meaning with Remedy. It sounds great, and it was easy, and people can remember it, So
I like the one word titles that make it easy for me. We're not getting, we don't have to get into like the sword and have some D&D meaning that half the writers don't get, or the publicists have to explain. Let's do a little track by track, and like I said offline, whatever you guys feel like sharing about the songs. You don't have to necessarily pull back the curtain and share everything, but if you want to give some feedback on each track, I would love to hear it. I know what I think about it. I think our fans would like to hear what you guys think about it, and sure. And the hilarious titles, so you'll have to forgive me if I have some puns. The album opens up with Tom Cruise Control.
So as you know, the titles have nothing to do with, this song has nothing to do with Tom Cruise, has nothing to do with cruise control on a car. It's just a name that we came up with. I've probably been asked it like 1,000 times already. Does this have anything? No, it has nothing to do with Tom Cruise. Sorry, Tom. Put it in a movie if you want. And all the titles for all the other songs have nothing to do with anything lyrically or anything like that. Many moons ago, the reason we came up with the different titles is, we just envisioned certain people reading, the album and saying these titles, and we thought it was funny. Some of the lyrics, are could be, I don't want to say dark, but so we wanted the titles to have just let us know that some of the stuff is tongue in cheek. We don't take ourselves in the vein, that we're the end all be all. What do you think about Tom Cruise Control, Douglas?
Yeah, I'm psyched about that one. I'm glad that one came out the way it did. I think it was like definitely one of the first ones that the riff wise that I was working on during COVID, and when we came together to put it all together, it just felt right to me. So I'm psyched that one actually came out as heavy as it did. Especially that middle breakdown part where the solo is. I definitely got that from like the kill chain from Bolt Thrower. I was listening to it like over and over again. I was like, and I wanted something like that, like kind of like that kind of like a grooving riff where it's just kind of like pummeling. So I don't know. I like that one a lot. So I'm pretty psyched about it.
I think one thing about this album, it definitely it shows I think the bands like who we listen to. You know what I mean? I think we're not afraid to kind of come out and say, hey, we love this band, or this band is influenced, or vocally, things like that. All the songs, so how it broke down, right? So I wrote so I had all the songs written before, and I literally was sitting at my desk one day, and I just rewrote 5 of the songs in like 10 minutes. And then next week, the other 5, I wrote in like another 5 minutes. Usually I'll have the vocals, but after, you hear everything, right? Like all the different kind of nuances. That's when, I don't know, something just kind of hits me. And then I literally just put my hand to the paper and it just goes. So each song is kind of written on top of the other song. So it's one of those things where lyrically, the thoughts that are going through my head just kind of lend themselves, to here's one song, then you go into the next one and the next one. So they all kind of, piggyback off each other, to be honest with you. And so, so I would say, Tom Cruise Control, the reason that, we picked it as the first tune is like what Doug said, it chugs. It just, it's one of those tunes where you could drive to it, right? You could sing to it. You know what I mean? You can make pizza to it. It pretty much, I think it's a great way to start the album.
Nice work. Do you make a lot of pizzas at home, Gaff? Is that what you do?
Okay. I do.
Not a Regina fan, or Regina, if you're depending. By the way, Doug, my notes.
I'm gonna go Regina. I'm actually gonna call it.
I've been following a lot of Ryan Reynolds, and he's from Regina, Saskatchewan, and he says Regina all the time because I think it sounds like vagina. Wow. He likes it.
Yeah, if you're Canadian, it's Regina. Yeah.
Also, my notes for that breakdown part in Tom Cruise Control, which is a great track to open with, says Moon Patrol, the game. Remember the riff from Moon Patrol? Do 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 do. Right? I'm telling you.
Oh shit.
I'm gonna take a wild stab at this second track.
Go ahead.
ELDZ. I think it's clouds.
Like clouds. Clouds.
Or it's clouds. Okay, clouds. I thought it was like clouds, like a an epithet.
No, so that's named after Dean Baltalonis's company, Clouds.
He has like a dispensary, and so he has some marijuana
drinks.
So THC drinks. They were called Clouds, and so we're using that.
Right. Track number 3 is Rambo 2.
That chorus, I have no idea where that came from. It's probably my favorite chorus. It's just one of those things where we're just trying stuff, and it literally just came out. That tune kind of speaks for itself. It is, what it is. Those who can run will never stay. It just, I don't. It was one of those, when I sang it, we heard it back. I was like, did we just do that? So it was one of those ones where I was like, no idea how, came up with, but it just was, when I came out, Doug was like, did you know what you just did? I was like, yeah, I have no idea. And so when they listen to it, it, it just speaks to, there's a comfort, we have a comfort with each other that it lends itself to trying, so many different things.
Just for me personally, like I always like compare like tunes that don't really sound like those tunes, but like on Steely Dan, Do It Again, like that, the whole vibe of that tune kind of reminds me of that. When I was, putting it together, whatever, I was definitely listening to a lot of Cloud Kicker, and it's like that kind of like that weird like solo riff guitar player guy that's playing to like a drum track. And if you've never heard Cloud Kicker, you should definitely check it out. He's amazing. Those kind of riffs where it's just kind of like angular more than just like kind of riff oriented. We never really had that kind of before, and so it's kind of refreshing to like that it came together and that it does work and that we can play it out. And
I feel like we met at like Cloud Kicker at Harper's Ferry, like for the first time ever, and I think Intronaut was like his backing band. I don't know why that comes to my brain.
So you're right, I wasn't at that show, but you're right about that show. That was at Bright Music Hall. I was gonna go, but I wish I did. Yeah, he's amazing.
Oh my dude, he's ridiculous. The next track is again, I know you said these titles don't mean anything. Joe Don Baker, the Whamma from The Natural. Joe Don Baker.
Yeah, that was an all-out ass whooper. We've had tunes like that, but never, I think, where it's just like right off the bat. You know what I mean? I love that tune. To be, it has that driving force. But then I really like, the vocals in that and how it came about. I think everything on that tune is pretty killing.
Fun fact about Joe Don Baker, he turned down the sequel to Walking Tall, and it probably killed his career a little bit.
It did.
Till like years later. Till like Cape Fear, he was like...
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
The Natural and Cape Fear, he did like, a lot of character work, which is great. But like, probably could have been a bigger star.
Walking Tall too.
He should have.
Was there a Walking Tall too?
Yeah, it was like they changed the name because he was like it's a long story.
Okay.
The aforementioned Pillow Talk is the next track.
It's one of the first ones where Doug, Seth, and I kind of hammered it out.
That middle part where Gaff does we have a breakdown where like his vocals are, everything stops and you hear his vocals kind of like harmonized, and it's like we wanted that kind of funkadelic kind of feel for it, and almost like a horn. If you listen to it, it's like those two breakdowns, and obviously like in stoner rock, you don't really have whatever. It's like I know we get categorized as stoner rock, but like with that genre itself, sometimes it definitely can be you can be limited to like what you can do if you wanted to, but let's just kind of make this as funkadelic as possible. And
that's another got a little bit of Steely Dan in that one too.
The
next track, and again I'm going to try not to butcher these, the Magnificent Morocco.
Yeah,
my man.
Yeah, so he was a wonderful wrestler. So as people know, usually we'll put a wrestler on each of the albums, or as Joe likes to call it, Morocco.
Okay. Don Morocco's, his claim to fame was the infamous Jimmy Snooker in Madison Square Garden, where Snooker's on top of the steel cage, and he jumps off, and that's Morocco on the bottom. But Don Morocco was the man. He was just like this like working class dude. Was kind of out of shape, but had these like thick arms, that that would smack you in the face, and you would feel it for days. That kind of dude.
I enjoy that, and that's one that we played in Europe like every night. That's got great riffs in it, man.
I love to hear all these live. I think this whole record will hold up. I think if you eventually play all of them live, I think this is pretty top to bottom, pretty terrific. But we're not quite done yet. So Ben Gazzara Loves No One is the next track.
I think that's the first one that Doug and I, that's the first one I sent to Doug. And wanted something, that was a little bit more, what I mean, kind of slide into that lovely 12th fret and stuff. It's kind of a different track, than the other ones that are so riff laden. But we really, wanted the outro in that to kind of have its own thing. And I definitely think it does. We wanted something kind of Radioheadish, you know what I mean? But also, that kind of, it has kind of a Queens of the Stone Age vibe too, and kind of, Sabbathy. So we wanted something that, because the song itself is just, you know what I mean? So, you wanted to go from kind of, that sedentary to also, you know what I mean? Just so yeah, that one is very kind of yin and yang. When I lost my mind, so yeah, that one is fun as Christ to play live.
Yeah.
Like, that's one Douglas can kind of stretch out on, shall we say. And again, that one slayed live. People, you know what I mean? People loved it.
Nice work. The next to last track is Ash.
We usually will have a song like Ash, what I mean, on most albums. I think that one, it has that very kind of sensitive verse, and then the chorus is kind of crushing. That one, it kind of went through some different transformations, and I'm happy with the way it came out. Like that one, I'm definitely, and that's another one too that I sent to Doug, and it just really kind of, once we heard like a few different versions of the last one, we were like, oh, okay, yeah, this works. So
Yeah.
it was kind of in that vein of like Tin Chicken, you know what I mean, or Alone, or we always have kind of
Yeah. Those long.
the kind of the more sensitive long ones.
Nice work. And the final and epic closing track is The Handler.
Yes. So Handler, that's one of the first ones I wrote. I sent it to Doug. And it kind of just took off. We knew, that'll be a nice, tune to end the album with. It just, again, like the end of that song definitely, gives Doug room to kind of do his thing. So, that tune, it definitely has a nice stretch to it.
Yeah.
If I was listening to I think a ton of Sleep and stuff, when and High on Fire, when again just those chords came up to me, and I sent it to Doug, and it kind of, we just kind of make that happen. I like the vocals on that one also. Like, I think lyrically I really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, just thank you for that and sharing all that stuff and putting that into words.
Do you have a favorite track?
Rambo 2, the opener, of course, Pillow Talk, and probably The Handler. Probably that one, because I like the more spread out stuff. I like when this band does their, kind of jams it out and takes their time. I like the patient Gozu.
My favorite bands, average length of songs is 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like Allman Brothers are my favorite band. I love the Grateful Dead, shit like that. So if it's up to me, I would play like 3 songs and it would be an hour. Having these guys like, doing that was pretty key, because we've never had, kind of those really kind of long. But, I think also, what Seth did drum wise on it, it just, I think we're a better band now than I think we're all better players now than we were. We're able to discuss things more. I mean, the thing about us is that 4 guys have to dig the song, right? Like if all 4 aren't into it, then we're not going to do it. So I've watched bands before, and I'll be like, man, those fuckers do not like each other. You know what I mean? And you could tell, like, and that sucks, because there's a certain vibe. So when you're playing a song, you don't want to look like, you're a miserable human being up there. It just doesn't. When we're doing stuff, it's got to be stuff that we like, but also it has to be shit you can play live. You know what I mean? Because if you can't, like why do it? And for me, the first thing that always grabs my ear, whether it be live or on the radio, it's always the drums. I think this album grooves harder than any album that we've had.
I think being able to play it live is definitely the most important part, and how they translate. And we're finding out right now, like, we recorded the album, then we went to Europe, and a lot of these songs kind of like got heavier as we were playing these shows. And if I could turn back time, like Cher, then I would definitely, like, I wish we would were re-recording the album now, because the songs are been worked on for so long and heavier that they would actually be heavier now. But I mean, I'm psyched about the album, don't get me wrong, but it's just funny how, like, you record them, then you go to play them, and you're like, oh shit, I wish we can go back. And now they've kind of like come to their to fruition of their groove. That being said, everything on the album is definitely captured like how we do it live. It's just now it's definitely more just a little bit heavier.
I really appreciate y'all, again, longtime fan, longtime follower and supporter, and just really glad to have this record coming out. I think it's gonna blow open some ears on this half of the year for music. It's been quite a good year for some stoner rock and heavy metal records, and this is going to be one of those top choice cut records for me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the feedback has been really good. There's a lot of people that had never heard the album before, or her, they were somewhat familiar with what we do, but this album seems to be kind of turning more people on, which is always wonderful to hear. You know what I mean? So, I'm glad you love it, man, because you've been with us since the genesis of the band. So
by hook or by crook, I had no choice. You guys were at every show I went to, one way on stage or in the crowd. Sure. You were at every show I went to for like those 4 years I lived in Boston. So good shit.
We're just as big music fans as, that's why we do it. You know what I mean?
There it is.
It's amazing to play with bands you dig. So, but thank you. So much love.